What makes a piece of art yours? Is it the moment you create it? Is it the years of practice that led you there? Or can ownership, creative ownership, be shared? In an age where playlists are personalized, ads are targeted, and almost everything we consume can be customized, one Wellington artist has taken that same idea and applied it to his own work. He's built a platform where collectors don't just buy his art, they finish it. Tim Christie has developed a way for people to choose the colors for his striking graphic works, turning every piece into a one-off and quietly collecting fascinating data about what colors we love. Today, on Articulate, we'll talk about creativity, control, and what happens when an artist steps back to let the audience in. Thank you so much for coming in today, Tim, to our studio here.
Kia ora, André. Thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
I guess to start, can you describe the moment that you thought, what if the collector could choose the colors of one of your artwork?
Yeah, I mean, it was two things coming together really. So I produce Lightworks, quite big illuminated pieces of art, and they are supplied with a remote control, and that control has a colour wheel and a whole lot of mode settings and gives you a lot of flexibility to actually manipulate the colour and experience it in different ways. And I thought, you know, this is such a cool thing, wouldn't it be great if I could somehow translate that to my print collection, which is really popular, which was kind of a silly thought because print is ink and you can't really manipulate ink. But nonetheless, that was the thought. And as well as that, the last 2 or 3 years I've been getting requests from customers, inquiries online, and even people in the gallery asking if I could custom colour a print. So they might see a piece of art and go, I like that, could you do it in this colour? And so I started working with customers to produce one-off custom coloured prints. And so those two things just kind of came together really, and it occurred to me I could build a digital interface, which is a bit like the remote control to the Lightwork, where people could go online and pick and preview colours and combinations in real time, and when they've found something they like, add it to the cart and literally buy a piece of completely personalised art. So that was the sort of two ideas coming together. I did a bit of research. I couldn't find anyone else specifically doing anything quite like this, and so I thought it was novel and a cool way just to collect art and interact with an artist. The other principle behind it is that each colour is a one-off. So when someone orders a print, I actually print the hexachrome colour code, and that is then removed from the available swatches. So it's a different kind of scarcity equation.
Your work, I've seen a bit of your work here on a bag today, but also people will know you from your gallery and just as an artist generally. Bold, graphic works. How does colour fit into that aesthetic, Tim?
Yeah, well, I guess the first thing to point out is that before I was a full-time artist, I was a designer. So I studied design and I worked in design and advertising. And so when you look at my work, it really is a fusion of design and art. And when I first started doing the art, it was purely black and white, like big black and white prints. And I was actually studying my own work one day and thinking, what if I could swap out the white with a really bright saturated colour? Because that would then have the same dynamic effect, but just open up a whole lot of possibilities. So I started doing black and brights as well as the black and whites. And then I also got into Lightworks because I was sort of thinking, what's the extreme version of this sort of high contrast art? And I realised that black and light was a way to really maximise that contrast effect. So I started making Lightworks and playing around with coloured light as well. So yeah, that was fun as well.
Our core question today is, if you give over some control of your art to the audience, does it make it more personal for them as the collector or less yours? What is your reaction to that or response?
Generally speaking, the more engaged you are in any kind of process, then the more attached you are to the outcome in any kind of domain. So I think in this case with my work, the fact that you can muck around and play with colours and spend quite a bit of time potentially deliberating ultimately means that it should become more of a personal thing. I think a good analogy is when you buy a new car. At first you're drawn to a brand, which is a bit like choosing an artist. Then you'll choose a model that suits your needs, which is a bit like choosing a piece of art. And then typically the last thing, after maybe some minor modifications, is what colour would you like? And I think that's a big sort of moment of personalisation. Even though it's arguably kind of a superficial, simple thing, it's a big moment where that vehicle truly becomes yours. So I think it's the same with my work. When you're choosing colour, I think it could be a colour that reflects your personality, or might be to suit a particular decor or something like that. So I think it really personalises it. But the other part of your question was, does it make it less mine? And in this instance, I don't think it really does, to be honest, because, in fact, in some ways, I think it makes it more mine, because people are enjoying quite a unique experience, a different way completely of collecting art, spending time looking at my work in a different way. So I think it, if anything, makes it just as much about me as it is about their personal experience.
Kind of on that note, how much do you think an artwork's meaning comes from you as the artist and creator versus viewer's interpretation?
Yeah, well, that's a very big question. Thanks for asking. I mean, it's actually impossible to completely quantify that, because I think it just depends on context, which is a bit of a cop-out. But I mean, an example of interpretation, I guess, with my work, which surprised me a bit, was one day when someone walked into my gallery and I had some big light works at the front of the space, and they're what you would call therianthropic characters, so half animal, half human light works, and they're quite imposing. I think it's the symmetrical design and some of the characters that I've presented have quite an imposing impact. And he looked at it and said, "Oh, this is you're clearly influenced by Egyptology. These are like Egyptian gods, right? This is what you're doing." And I was like, "Well, I can actually see exactly what you're talking about, but no, that wasn't a conscious decision. But I can appreciate why he was sort of thinking along those lines." Interestingly, I have been to Egypt, and I sailed down the Nile and went to all the temples and saw all the hieroglyphics. So maybe subconsciously it rubbed off, but as an intention, no. So that's an example of where someone is bringing their own experiences and associations, applies a completely different interpretation. Yeah.
Have you ever been, that's a good segue also into, have there been any moments where you've been surprised or challenged by the choices that a collector might have made when selecting the colours of one of your works?
No, to be honest, not at this stage, no. And it is in its infancy. I've only really just launched this. And as well as that, it's kind of hard to get it wrong. All the colours are in the bright spectrum to go with black. So they're designed to work with black. Although the way I've set it up, there is a secondary colour, optional. So it is conceivable that someone could choose some pretty gnarly combinations that I wouldn't typically choose. But we'll wait and see. Yeah, it's early days.
Yeah, just bright neon.
Yeah, as possible, yeah.
Walk me through how the platform actually works then, Tim, from one of your works to the finalised, personalised work for a collector.
Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately really simple, and we've made it simple because you kind of have to with any digital interface these days. And I was fortunate to have the help of a good friend, Andrew, who's a great developer and UX expert, and together we created the system where you basically go to timchristie.nz, you'll find the YOUHUE collection, and that brings up a whole range of pieces of art. And if you click into one of those pieces of art, it brings up an interface which includes a couple of scrollable sets of swatches, and you can pick and choose and muck around with different combinations and preview those selections in real time. And when you're happy with a selection, you simply choose the size that you want and add it to the cart and go through a checkout process. And then that triggers me that I've received an order after which I then open up the original digital artwork and manually apply the colour that they've selected, because the order that they've made actually comes with a hexachrome colour code. So I'm actually manually applying that and then saving out a super high resolution file, and then I just simply work with my printers, stretchers and framers and have it reproduced and fabricated and shipped directly to your home or office. And after that, I then remove the hexachrome code from that particular piece of art, the colour that's been chosen, so that it can never be chosen again, and that's how each piece becomes a one-off. Yeah.
You must have gathered a little bit of data, I'm guessing, through just this project in its infancy, Tim, on people's colour preferences. What have you learned so far, and are there any kind of surprising patterns at all in what you've noticed?
Yeah, so in addition to the sales, I actually collected a whole lot of colour preference information from a big art event, the New Zealand Art Show. Encouraged people to let me know what they would, if they were to choose a piece of my art, what colour would they go with. And yeah, so I got a whole lot of data, which was really interesting. So some of the key insights, blue, for example, was by far the most popular colour for pretty much everyone. Females were generally more likely to go for sort of in-between ambiguous colours. So they were more dispersed across the spectrum. They would choose, more likely to choose something like a minty green or a pink or a purple, whereas guys generally just gravitated towards big, bold colours. I don't know what that, not all that surprising perhaps. Men were particularly interested in red. They also like blue, of course, but women weren't really drawn to big, bold red much at all, except when that red starts getting warmer. So the closer it gets to yellow, the more interested, this is from the data I've got, the more interested or more likely women are to choose it. And by the time it gets to yellow, it's pretty much 50-50. But yellow itself, surprisingly to me, was just not a popular colour, so it was actually quite small. And the least popular colour was fluoro yellow. So yellow, yeah,
no surprises.
Not surprising, really. Yeah, but I was surprised at how unpopular. I think only one person, like, out of everyone that chose that colour. It's not surprising because it's quite activating on the retina. It's a hard colour to look at. It's why emergency services use it. It's why it's associated with things like radioactive, and so there's all sorts of biological and social reasons why it's not popular. Yeah. But having said that, I've got a friend who turned up to one of our gatherings wearing sort of neon green nail polish and a bright neon green yellow dress, and she totally rocked it.
Okay.
So,
it's kind of an aesthetic thing, right? If it suits the vibe, it suits the vibe.
I mean, it's definitely a statement.
Yeah. Personalization is pretty much everywhere now, Tim, from even like a sneaker to a Spotify playlist. Do you see this kind of innovation as the future of art collecting?
I mean, personalization definitely is going to be a huge part of the future as we accelerate towards this algorithmically engineered new reality. No doubt about that. In fact, I was just reading about something yesterday about a guy who has fallen in love with his chatbot and proposed to the chatbot.
It's crazy.
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, you don't get more personalised than that, right? So,
is that the one that also has a wife?
Yes, yeah, you've read that story too. Yeah, it's very
odd,
very strange. But the chatbot actually said yes, so I don't know what that means, but that's pretty intense. So yeah, there's no question personalisation generally. I think some artists, creative people, maybe even techie people will use technology to create more personalised experiences. I don't think it's the future of art. It'll be a future. I think it'll be part of it. I think one of the things that will happen as we move towards this crazy new future, where everything's so sort of digitally orientated, is that things that take grit and sort of human endeavour and blood, sweat and tears, that take real time and effort, and that are handmade, those artisan sort of qualities. I think those things will become more valued compared to this sort of frictionless, seamless, immediate digital world. So I think that's also going to be the future potentially. But the future generally is very uncertain, and especially with the major social upheaval that everyone's anticipating. And I have no idea what state the whole art industry will be in by that stage, because they're talking about the whole knowledge economy or professional services being massively disrupted.
Has creating this, Tim, this platform, changed your relationship with your own work at all?
I wouldn't say a great deal. It's a small, well, it's not a small project, it's a sort of a separate project in a way. It's a different way to interact and buy my art. I am relinquishing a bit of control, so that means potentially, as we talked before, someone could choose some pretty crazy combinations, but then I'm defining those parameters and allowing that. So yeah, I don't think it's changed how I feel about my practice much at all, to be honest. It's just a fun project that I'm really excited to see how it goes. But I'm still busy with all sorts of other things, and yeah.
Do you think other artists could apply this type of technique to their own work that work in different disciplines? So for example, a musician or a filmmaker, and what that could potentially look like?
Yeah, I mean, as I said before, yeah, definitely the future's going to involve more personalisation. Whether it's actual artists delivering that or just anyone with a cool idea, sort of using that technology, because the technology makes it so easy to generate amazing digital content. That's going to be the interesting bit. But I can definitely see a day where you put on a headset and it's an amalgamation of gaming and film, and you're like James Bond and in the middle of this crazy interactive movie experience. So clearly there's going to be a lot of that, whether it's art or entertainment. Don't know, maybe it's going to be more of a fusion.
I think just lastly, Tim, you've brought an object in today, I think, from your creative life to share with us. Can you tell us what it is and why you brought it in?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've brought in this book called Modern Painting. It's a bit tatty, it's old, but yeah, on the inside cover it says, "To Timothy Christie, love from Uncle Roger, March 1987.
Oh, that's so sweet, your uncle.
Yeah, so my Uncle Roger bought this for me in March. Interestingly, it's not a birthday, it's not Christmas. So he must have just seen this and thought, oh, Tim's really enjoying his art, I think he'd really enjoy this. And it's an amazing overview of 20th century art.
Mondrian.
Oh, it's got all the great artists and art movements.
So is this a bit of a point of reference for you, reference book?
I think so. I mean, it's sort of been hidden away for quite a while, but I discovered it recently. But the interesting thing about Uncle Roger is that he was a doctor, a GP, but in his free time, he did a lot of painting. So he was really into watercolours and did portraits and landscapes, and I always found that quite inspiring. And then the other interesting thing about this book, when I looked at it recently, on the back here, there's a piece of art by an artist called Vasarely, who was actually the grandfather of the op art movement.
Okay.
And he also, funnily enough, went to med school, like my uncle, but dropped out to pursue a creative career, and then ended up working in design and advertising, and then migrated into the world of art, but took with him this very graphic optical style, which is incredibly similar to what I've just done.
Exactly like
what I've just done myself. And I was sort of looking, going, golly, was this some kind of influence from way back? I mean, I was 11 when I got this book, so I don't know, but it's quite a similar journey, other than the dropping out of med school. I never went to med school, but
it's like another subconscious, maybe
could
influence.
Be, yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in today, Tim. I so appreciate your time and having you here. It's been a great chat. Thanks.
Awesome. No, thanks very much for having me. Yeah.
Tim Christie is testing where authorship ends and collaboration begins, and maybe showing us that art doesn't have to be a one-way street. I'm André Chumko, and this was Articulate. Next time, we'll ask another big question about the role of art in our lives and talk to someone shaping its future. Thanks for watching. See you next time.